So, what if the universe isn't just a big, empty space that runs like clockwork? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty wild idea, that reality is actually this deeply interactive system, and our own consciousness has a part to play in it. And if that's true, it could change how we think about, well, everything, even things we call miracles.
Let's kick things off with a thought from St. Augustine that really sets the stage perfectly. He said, miracles are not contrary to nature, but only contrary to what we know about nature. I love that. It totally flips the script. Instead of miracles being these violations of natural law, maybe they're just nature working on principles we haven't figured out yet. So this leads us right to the core question we're exploring. Are these incredible events just glitches in the system? Or are they actually little windows giving us a peek into how reality really works? That's what we're going to get into.
Okay, first up, let's completely rethink what we even mean when we use a word like miraculous. The big idea here is a huge shift in perspective. So instead of seeing the universe as this cold, predictable machine just ticking along, what if it's more of a responsive, relational system? This way of looking at things suggests that our consciousness isn't just a passenger watching the show. It's actually on stage, participating.
All right, so if the universe is participatory, how in the world does our consciousness actually get involved? Let's get into the how of it all. Now, this is a really, really important distinction to make. We are not talking about the mind controlling reality, like some kind of superpower. That's a huge misunderstanding. The idea is way more subtle. It's that consciousness might have a little influence on how unstable systems decide to go. Think of a coin spinning on a table. For just a split second, it could be heads or tails. That's an unstable system. And the theory is that our awareness can give a gentle nudge in those moments of pure potential.
And this really breaks down what that participation looks like. See, it's not about force, not about wrestling reality to the ground. It's about alignment. It's more like a subtle influence that just biases an outcome, kind of turning down the static or the noise and synchronizing with something that's already happening.
And when you think about it that way, the question just completely changes. We're not asking about power anymore, like, can I change this? It becomes a question about relationship, about participation. What is my awareness doing in this moment as it's all unfolding? It's a totally different way of seeing things.
Okay, I know. This is all getting a little heady and abstract, so let's bring it back down to earth with a personal story that makes this idea way more concrete. It's a story about a cloud. So the story begins with a really simple experiment. The author decided to try and influence a cloud just by focusing on it really, really hard. And the results? Absolutely nothing. Zip, nada. And that failure right there is actually the key to the whole thing. And then a friend suggests trying a different approach, a different state of mind. And this is where it gets really interesting. The whole approach shifts from forceful, intense concentration to just effortless observation, just watching, no strain, no urgency. And in that different state of being, the cloud just dispersed. You see, the point wasn't the external event. It was the internal state. But wait, the story's not over, because years later, the author tries to perform this for some students, to turn it into a show. And guess what? It failed again. The ego, the pressure, the very act of performing, it just got in the way. So what are the big lessons from all this? Well, first, trying to perform just collapses that delicate, subtle state of mind. Second, observing with an agenda, trying to force an outcome, just creates interference. And third, doubt, it wasn't like an opposing force. It was more like static on the radio, just disrupting the signal. And the one thing that tied it all together, the secret ingredient, was a complete absence of strain.
Okay, before we go one step further, we have to hit pause for a second, because this is incredibly important. This whole exploration is philosophical. It is absolutely not medical advice. If you are dealing with a serious condition, please always seek qualified medical care.
All right, with that vital context front and center, let's carefully broaden the scope and just see how these ideas might connect to our own bodies.
When you look at medical literature, you'll find these rare but very well documented accounts of spontaneous remission. Now, these aren't presented as proof of anything. They're just humble reminders that our biology is ridiculously complex and still holds deep mysteries that we just don't understand yet. So if our awareness does have some influence on our biology, how might that even work?
Well, this slide shows what's probably the most grounded and plausible pathway. It's not direct, it's more of a cascade. It starts with awareness and emotional regulation. That helps settle down the nervous system, which then lowers our stress reactivity, which finally just creates a better internal environment for the body's own amazing healing processes to do their thing. So, after all that, what does this actually mean for how we live our lives? Let's bring it all home and look at the wisdom that comes out of this perspective. And this just lays it out so clearly. It really comes down to a choice between two totally different approaches. On one side, you've got hubris, trying to impose your will on your body, treating healing like you're trying to dominate something. And on the other side, you've got alignment, supporting your body's own innate intelligence, treating healing like a cooperation, a partnership. You know, it reminds me of that amazing quote from Albert Einstein. The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. That really gets to the core of participation, doesn't it? Our inner world isn't separate from the outer world. It's the very lens through which we experience it.
So if you're going to take away just one idea from our time together today, let it be this. The universe does not respond well to force, but it often responds beautifully to coherence. That's the whole game right there, alignment over control. Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. If the deepest way we can participate is by simply recognizing how connected we are to everything, what's the most profound act of participation you can choose to do today? Thanks so much for exploring this with me.